We are the Lab Doctors. I'm Amanda.
I'm Dorothy.
And I'm Zhao Yong.
We are biomedical researchers who realized we still have a lot to learn about science.
So why not join us on this quest?
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Lab Doctors podcast. On this episode of Today We Learn, we will be talking about electromagnetic waves and cancer. For those of you who are new, Today We Learn episodes are the ones where we try and figure out answers to questions we have with our current knowledge. We take a break, do our research, and come back in part 2 to tell you what we have learned.
So we thought of this question when we microwave food, and I have this irrational fear about the radiation from microwaves and whether or not I can get cancer from it.
Oh, me too.
Exactly.
Every time I microwave my food, right, then I'll be like hiding behind my wall in the kitchen.
Yeah, to reduce. Or like you just don't want to stay in the room, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in my new job, like I have to microwave something and I have to watch it boil. And I get like, oh crap, I'm gonna get cancer in time. I'm like, okay, touch wood, touch all the wood. Yeah.
But that's the thing. So I know in general that it wouldn't give you cancer, but I don't know why, like the science behind it.
Okay, before that, let's go into cancer and definition of mutations and how we can get cancer from radiation.
Okay, a very, very simplified definition of cancer is just when some of our cells begin to divide uncontrollably and then invade other tissues and organs in our body.
Yeah.
So cells become cancer cells largely because of mutations. And before you freak out about what mutations are, mutations is just a fancy word for abnormal changes in the DNA of your genes.
Yeah.
Okay, so mutations may be inherited, it may arise spontaneously, or it can also be acquired. So one of the most common ones that we've heard of that is linked to cancer is smoking. So I'm sure you've heard that smoking increases your risk of getting lung cancer.
Yeah.
So that's just one of the cancer-causing agents. So tying it back to microwaves, radiation is also one of these known agents to cause cancer.
Yeah, but I guess the question is whether or not all forms of radiation can cause cancer, right? So if you didn't know, so radiation is a term in general that we use for this bunch of waves that is called the electromagnetic wave spectrum. So from the lowest to highest energy,
Say it fast.
we have radio wave, microwave, infrared, visible light, UV, X-ray, and gamma. So that's lowest energy to highest energy. So we can see that radio wave and microwave are actually lower in energy compared to visual light, which is the light that we see.
Yeah. So all the colors and everything, that's visible light.
Yeah, so microwaves have lower energy than visual light. And so do y'all think that it has the ability to cause cancer, you know? Because the ones that are more common are like what, X-rays and gamma rays, right? And
Right. I don't know. Maybe we can talk about X-rays first because we know X-rays have high energy and in Singapore and I'm pretty sure other countries as well, the regulation is quite tight as to like people who are radiologists who work with taking X-rays.
Yeah.
They are monitored very closely on like how much radiation they're exposed to on a yearly basis and you know they always try to have control measures to limit your amount of exposure.
Yeah.
Either by building a wall, which is very useful.
Usually go behind the wall, close the door.
Yeah. Or I don't know, like wear some protective material that can, you know, absorb the radiation for you before it enters your body. So
I guess my question is it safe for us, you know, the patients that just randomly go for visits? Is it safe for us?
like just one X-ray increase your risk by multiple times.
Yeah, exactly.
So I just got a chest X-ray done last week.
Wow.
And
what happened?
So that's the thing. It wasn't even for a diagnosis or something. You know, a lot of applications like jobs, visa and everything.
Right.
You need to do a chest X-ray. So if
like a medical checkup.
It's part of the medical checkup. And so is it okay for me to do it once a year or twice a year? Or does every time...
week.
So I think whether it's safe for humans, I mean people who are not working there, I think it's a matter of low dose and short exposure.
Right, yeah.
So because I'm only exposed to it when I'm there and I'm not there every day, does that mean it reduces my risk?
Yeah, I believe so. And I think that, you know, low dose and even though it's high energy radiation, the risk of it inducing mutations, I think is relatively low. But that's my question. So what about microwave food, right? You know how microwaves, we need to microwave for at least maybe 5 5 minutes around there on average.
2 minutes maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
2 to
Depends on what you're eating.
Depends on what
Oh,
you're eating.
yeah,
2 to
yeah,
5
for
minutes
sure,
in general, right? Yeah, so even though it's low energy, but we stand there for a longer duration. And I don't know how protective microwave oven doors are.
I don't think 5 minutes is a very long
Is it not?
duration. I mean, think about the sun. Okay, so the sun is
What's happening? Yeah.
the sun is what do you call it? UV ray, right? Ultraviolet ray.
Yeah, it's just one of the few rays
And
that
that's like every day. That's like whenever you're in the sun, or like even from the
That is
office,
true.
you get the sun. I think that's even longer exposure.
Yeah, but-
for something that is higher
Yeah.
energy
Yeah,
than
but-
a microwave.
doesn't the sun cause skin cancer though? It's like-
It does.
Oh,
Yeah.
right. I mean, the ozone protects us.
Yeah.
And if you go sun tanning every day, you probably will increase your risk a lot.
Yeah, exactly.
So apply sunblock.
But also some ethnicities are
right.
predisposed to skin cancer.
Oh.
Yeah, like
Caucasians.
Caucasians compared to tanner skin people that have some
Even
natural
Asians actually,
filter.
skin cancer is actually very low incidence amongst Asians.
Yeah.
East Asians and South Asians.
Oh.
What do you have in our skin? Melanin. Is it
Yeah,
melanin?
the pigment, right? So does melanin, or in essence, a darker skin pigmentation, is it actually protective towards skin cancer?
Yeah.
It is?
The science isn't the science showing
Yeah,
it.
but why? Yeah, I guess the
Oh, I
question
don't
is
know.
why.
I guess
Is it
actually I don't know.
causative, or do you think?
Just correlational?
Yeah, do you think it's correlational?
I don't know. I have a theory which is based on my secondary school physics. That's when I stopped physics. So we know that in general, darker colors are able to absorb and release thermal radiation
Yeah.
more easily,
Yeah.
right? Is that the same for all forms of radiation? So it's basically.
I think so. Yeah, it doesn't it apply to the entire spectrum, like the absorption and release?
I have no idea. I can't
think it
remember.
does.
I thought it does.
If
It
I
does?
remember
Yeah, I
correctly.
think
Oh yeah,
so.
because that's
My secondary school physics as well.
thermal radiation.
Yeah, it's just
Is it-
radiation in
is it
general.
Infrared? I can't remember. It's
No,
not,
I think
right?
it's
No.
radiation in
It's
general.
radiation.
Yeah,
Jack.
it's like heat. Oh,
Yeah, that's what I thought it was
heat's
heat.
another thing, right? But we should ask a physicist.
We should. But yeah, the thing about it is, so then does that mean darker pigmentation? So is our skin becoming darker in, when we go to the beach or something?
Because it absorbs.
No, because it stimulates melanin production.
Oh,
and
it
that's why
stimulates.
we
No,
become darker
I
as
thought
an
we become
adaptation.
darker because we get burned. Like after a sunburn, your skin gets
Oh.
blacker.
Yeah. As in,
But it's due to the melanin.
it's due to the melanin
Really?
that's produced, right? And that's why when I was younger, I swam a lot and I was actually quite dark skinned.
Oh yeah, me too.
Yeah.
And then the goggles.
Yeah, exactly, the goggles.
Right.
Then, until I stopped swimming because I became lazy, then my skin became lighter again, and I think that's just an adaptation, right?
So fast, like in just one sun tanning session, you get so much more produced.
Yeah. And that's the thing about our bodies, right? It's not immediate. We usually get it 1 or 2 days after because our body is preparing us for another session of being in the sun.
I beg to differ though.
No?
I mean, maybe there's some truth in that, but like within half an hour of sun tanning, sometimes I feel like I'm one shade darker, and then it's like so rapid. So I'm pretty sure I was like
Yeah.
burned, or I don't know, you call it tanning to a
Yeah.
certain extent.
Yeah, but you know how some people only become red and they don't become darker?
And that's because they don't have enough.
Yeah, and I
melanin.
usually
that's
think,
me.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I used to play
That's
netball
true.
all the time, and I just get super red, and then the next day I come back
Yeah.
the same color.
I get burned, and then the dark skin falls off because it's dead, and
Yeah.
then I become the same color.
Yeah, but that's getting sunburned. But when you apply enough sunblock, I think you only become darker.
Okay.
Yeah, and I believe it's an adaptation, although I'm not entirely
Okay.
sure.
We have to read this up.
Yeah.
Speaking of radiation, what do y'all think about those chains going around that says you should switch off your phone before you sleep? If
Oh, I
not,
do
you will
that.
get brain cancer.
Yeah, that's like also long exposure, right? If you think about it,
Yeah, I
we
do
have
that
our phones
all the time.
You off
Every
your
night?
phone?
Yeah, airplane mode every night. I mean, also partially
What if
because
there's an emergency?
I need my sleep and I don't want people to disturb my
What if
sleep.
there's an emergency?
Then call the landline in my house.
I don't have your house number. Who uses house phones? Less people use house phones now.
I guess my argument for this is: do you want Grumpy Chow Yong to pick up the phone and react to whatever emergency you have?
That's just
Or
your problem.
995.
Do you want?
Is it 995?
Can you call 995 because Zhao Yong didn't pick up the phone?
No, I mean if it was an emergency, I guess I wouldn't call Zhao Yong.
Yeah, exactly. So,
But as in if there's an emergency pertaining to Zhao Yong, but whatever, this is not important.
do you want grumpy Zhao Yong, or do you want nice, well-rested Zhao Yong that is able to absorb all your emotions?
It's a question of urgency, okay? If I need you at that time, then I should call you. I should be able to. Okay,
But
anyway.
do you want grumpy?
Okay, stop.
Besides the point.
I wake up so early
To
anyway.
the point.
Okay, yes. Back to the point of phones and radiation,
Yes.
right?
And
You
brain
switch it
cancer.
off.
And brain cancer.
You switch it off. I
Yeah,
don't
I
switch
switch
it
it
off.
off.
I just put it at my feet.
Yeah.
Sometimes,
As much as I can.
Okay,
Yeah.
sometimes I'll be like, put it
Put it
further
away.
away.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't care. So I don't know.
So that's the thing about it. I also think it's pretty irrational because phones are based on radio waves, right? How they work. And radio waves, I think, are the least energy. Yeah, they are the least.
The lowest energy.
And also, we essentially have our phones near us the entire day,
Yeah.
which is potentially half of the day, you know?
And really, if you put it at your feet versus putting it at your head, I mean, like, I'm just 1.5 meters. It's just 1.5 meters away. Is that going to do anything? Compared to engineering controls where they really build a wall.
Yeah.
Like, if you put it outside your room, maybe I'll be like, yeah, maybe that blocks out sound.
But you know how
Yeah.
they say Wi-Fi, you don't switch off your Wi-Fi
Yeah,
at night,
exactly.
right? So you're not protected from those.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, so
Waves.
basically you have radiation passing through
Yeah.
everywhere you go
And
in
honestly,
this day and age.
Yeah, in like such a population dense area as Singapore, where
Yeah.
you know, essentially in my flat, like right above me, I can detect my neighbor's Wi-Fi signal. They can detect my signal. I
So
can
even
detect
if you switch
everyone's
off your
signal.
Wi-Fi,
Yeah, does
everyone
that-
else's Wi-Fi is still on.
Yeah,
and the
does that-
Singapore wireless
And then the whole radio wave and whatever,
Yeah.
however you get your normal phone calls.
Yeah, and did y'all see this recent, I don't know if it's a meme or news article or Facebook post, whatever, that someone actually mentioned to their downstairs neighbor to turn off their Wi-Fi at night because, his wife is pregnant and they're scared that it will affect
He
the
better
baby.
not hold a phone. Okay, no offense to this person, but yeah.
Yeah, as in, I mean, to impose to this extent, I don't think it's very nice.
Yeah.
And apparently the downstairs neighbors wrote back to them and it's like, if your wife cares so much about the Wi-Fi, maybe she should move somewhere.
Oh damn.
Yeah.
How many neighbors do you think he sent it to?
I have no idea because
Because you have to send it to all the surrounding neighbors. You can't
Unless-
just send it to the downstairs neighbor.
yeah, unless it's you are on the top floor, I guess. But
Oh.
even then, the
Oh,
ones
right.
that are around you.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
the top floor and you have no like you're the only
Only
one on the
one.
floor.
Yeah, so that's the thing. I'm thinking it actually doesn't really affect all that much because, to be honest, we are just exposed to too much of these radio waves constantly anyway.
Okay, I have just one last question.
yeah.
So now we're talking about things that we are exposed to, right? But what about foods that have been exposed to radiation and then we eat them?
Oh,
I mean, excluding microwave food, but like
Yeah.
we're talking about those from the nuclear reactor meltdowns,
yeah.
the foods from those area.
Yeah.
Can we eat them?
Yes.
because they look mutated.
Are they?
Yeah,
Do they
you
look
got see the
mutated?
pictures where they come like in weird shapes. I mean, okay, they don't come because like we stopped importing them, but like they look like they are super
Wait,
mutated.
do
They look
people
out of
sell
shape.
these? Is it?
I don't think.
It's unethical, isn't it?
Yeah,
but okay.
I think there should be some form of regulation. Like
Yeah.
things shouldn't be going out from there, but people go document it and take a picture of it.
Yeah.
They are like weird shaped.
But if you
apples
think
or
about
something.
it, genetically modified, like
Yeah.
GMO foods
Are essentially
mutated.
Yeah, so
foods
that's my question. Is the issue the mutation or is the issue the radiation that's
that
stored?
caused. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's stored
Right.
in the fish. And does radiation store like this? We really need a physicist
Yeah.
here. But
I think it does because
it does.
right?
You think about like people who have thyroid therapy, right? They eat some
Iodide. Yeah,
which
a
is
radioactive
radioactive.
iodide. Yeah.
And after that, you know the medicine. I don't know if nowadays they're still stored in a
Oh, there's-
protective case. I saw a picture on Facebook.
Yeah.
Facebook is my news source. Facebook, like they store these iodide pills
Yeah.
in a lead case or something.
yeah.
A case made of lead to protect it. And then also like if you are a patient and eat a pill, you have to like try to isolate yourself from other people around you.
Is that safe
Because
to eat
you
them?
have, I mean, you have, that's the best therapy for now, I guess.
Yeah, it
you
is,
know.
it is though.
If you have hyper or
Hyper.
hyperthyroidism.
Yeah.
So I think radiation can be stored in foods. So I don't know if it's safe to eat these kind of things.
I mean, I don't think it's safe, but then we are arguing for that it is the radiation that's stored and not
yeah,
the mutants.
not the
lah.
mutations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you talk about GMO, which genetically modified food, is good mutations. you'd say.
Yeah, exactly. And
But
also,
who's to say what's a good and bad? I mean, from when you look at it,
Yeah.
you can't really tell.
Like if
you
you
know?
mutate to become bigger
Yeah.
from the radiation, it's like good because
Yeah.
got more meat to eat.
yeah, and that's the thing, right? Also, you know how chickens last time, wild chickens used to be very small, but then
And skinny.
humans slowly selected for big chickens. So
Is it?
that
I thought they
we
just
grow more food.
feed them more growth
Yeah,
hormones.
yeah, yeah. So there's a
growth
lot.
hormones.
But that's not radiation.
I mean,
No,
yeah, but it's.
But that's mutations, right?
Yeah.
Essentially, because you are a mutant chicken that have genes that let you grow bigger, you know, and we eat that.
they inject also for
They
sure.
inject lah, for sure, but
Yeah, but that's mutation. I think that's for another story. But I mean, for another day. But like, I don't. That's mutation.
yeah, but I mean, different traits come from
Yeah.
mutations, right?
I
So
thought it's just the growth hormone binding to the receptor.
either way, there's some form of mutation happening.
But I
somewhere.
think I would just avoid foods that come from.
for sure
Because of the radiation.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like I have a shortage of food. I mean, if I do, then maybe
We are privileged enough to not have the shortage of food.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, unless I'm stranded there and I have no choice, maybe I would.
If you were stranded there though, you would also be exposed to the radiation.
Oh yeah, that's bad. And that would give you cancer. I mean, like nuclear reactors. I mean, no, last time the atomic bomb and then people you know that down the road they get cancer and their children get cancer as
Yeah,
well.
Yeah.
super high incidence of childhood leukemia in those countries.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty sad. If you go to Japan museums, they talk about all these bomb and the people suffering from side effects.
Yeah,
So
it's
Well, this
Quite a
took
big
a
tragedy.
depressing turn.
okay. I guess to summarize a bit on what we have talked about today, and the stuff we need to look into. So firstly, can we take X-rays without protection? Is it safe to stand in front of a working microwave? Do we get brain cancer when we sleep near our phones or use Bluetooth wireless headphones? And also foods that come from places that have been polluted by radiation. Can we eat them, and what exactly is dangerous about them? Oh, and also lastly, skin cancer.
yeah, whether we can
Whether-
get skin cancer from UV radiation.
You can.
From the sun.
But how?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
And
and whether
why?
or not melanin is protective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stay tuned.
Okay, we're back for part 2 of electromagnetic waves, where we talk about microwaves, X-rays, and whether it gives us cancer.
Yep, so the first question that we have is, does standing in front of a working microwave oven give us cancer?
Okay, so microwaves are a type of non-ionizing radiation because it's on the lower energy end of the spectrum. Therefore, it has not been shown to cause any damage to cells and DNA. And they do not make food radioactive because they are low energy.
Yep.
But they have enough energy to excite molecules and atoms, causing them to vibrate faster and heat up. So if you've ever put a glass of water in the microwave, you can see that it starts to vibrate, and then that's how it heats up food.
Yeah.
That's why if your food is really dry, they always advise you to throw some water in to facilitate the heating process. However, at very high levels, microwaves can cause burns and cataracts if the energy leaks through the opening in the microwave. So if your microwave is faulty, the seal is not good, it could leak through. So to combat all this, manufacturing is regulated very tightly to keep the microwaves contained in the oven itself.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's built with engineering modifications like dual interlock systems that when it's closed, then you can switch it on. But when you want to open it, it has to be off. And another thing is the lining on the doors with the metal mesh, with the circles.
Yep.
Yeah, I always see those metal mesh.
Yeah, apparently it's designed so that the microwaves can't escape it.
Oh,
So
I
the
always
distances between each of the holes and everything is designed such that the microwaves can't escape, but you can look inside at the food. Yeah.
I always hated that mesh. I'm like, why can't I see my food?
It's for your safety.
I always assumed it is, but then I always thought it was just like some random. Like,
I mean, if you think about it, where is microwave in comparison to visible light?
Yeah. True.
And then if you can see, then it's just a matter of how far the holes are spaced.
Right,
If
yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so if you are scared and if your microwave is old, maybe you should check if there's any damage to the door hinge, the latch, or the seal, because that's what's keeping the microwave in. So the biggest hazard from microwaves actually is not that the food that you eat after heating it up gives you cancer.
Yeah.
It's actually thermal damage, so heat. So from microwaving it, and then you don't know how hot it is until you touch it, so people get burns from the holding the containers and everything.
Okay.
So standing in front of the microwave is safe because microwaves are low energy.
Great.
Cool.
Yeah, I guess another thing that we are exposed to throughout our life at some point in time, X-rays and whether or not they are dangerous for us.
Yeah, so in contrast to microwaves, X-rays are on the other end of the electromagnetic spectrum, which is high energy.
Yeah.
So it's actually classified as an ionizing radiation, and it may pose potential harm to living tissue, and the risk increases with increased number of exposures.
Yeah, right.
So, but the reason why we can take chest X-rays is because we are exposed to a low level radiation for a fraction of a second.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you've taken a chest X-ray before, for example. They just ask you to breathe in and then they're out of the room and they're back.
Yeah.
In less than a
Super
second.
fast.
Yeah. So the level of radiation that you are exposed to during a chest X-ray is actually equal to a few days worth of background radiation.
Oh.
So the radiation that is in the environment that occurs naturally, a few days of that is a fraction of a second of an X-ray.
Should I be worried about this background radiation?
You can't do anything about. What do you want to do? Wear a
I don't know.
radio protective jacket?
Does that help?
I don't know how much it will help unless you wear a full-on suit because your face will still be, even if you wear the jacket.
I want to sit out and walk in a box.
It's too troublesome.
So scientists agree that there is a less than 1 in 1 million chance for X-rays to cause cancer because in addition to the short duration that you are exposed, the intensity is not that high. So some people are worried about how many times they can take a chest X-ray in a year, for example. But what really matters is not the frequency of you taking the chest X-ray, as in like how frequent, but the intensity of the radiation.
Right.
So if, I don't know, I think we've talked about this before, but it's measured in this unit called millisievert. So experts agree on the amount of radiation that you can be exposed to in your lifetime. So chest X-rays expose someone to about 0.01 millisieverts.
Yeah.
So that's about 2 to 4 days of background radiation. So the American College of Radiology actually recommends limiting lifetime diagnostic radiation to 100 millisievert, which means you can take 10,000 chest X-rays in your lifetime safely.
I shouldn't even aim for that.
Yeah, I mean you shouldn't, obviously. Yeah, so I think X-rays not really an issue, but what is of concern actually, which I was like, oh, that's so much, is CT scans, so computed tomography scans.
Yeah.
That's a chest CT scan is about 4 to 7 millisievert compared to a chest X-ray, which is 0.01.
Oh, but that's because CT scans basically take many different X-rays.
Yes, they have to take a lot, so the duration you are exposed is longer.
Yeah.
But then the thing about it is you have to always weigh the benefits and the cost of diagnostic radiation.
Right. Yeah.
So if the cost is not detecting a life-threatening disease, then you should go for the CT scan because you could possibly treat it. Yeah, so I think it's basically always weighing the benefit versus the risk.
Right.
Yeah, but in terms of X-rays, it's actually so much lower. So and it's generally quite safe. So yeah.
Then what about somewhere in the middle of the spectrum? So we were talking about UV rays. Can they cause skin cancer?
Yeah, so UV rays are one of the main reasons why we can develop skin cancer, and that's also one of the reasons why the sun can actually cause us to get skin cancer as well. Yeah, so if you realize you can't really feel UV rays, the heat that we feel from the sun is actually from infrared, which is thermal radiation, right? So UV damage can actually occur to us at any temperature, at any climate. So even in winter, that's why at some winter countries they say you must still cover up or you must still put sunblock. Yeah, because UV rays can still penetrate clouds and then damage our skin. Yeah, so and this damage doesn't necessarily have to be sunburns. Damage can occur even without sunburns because again the burns are caused of thermal radiation. Yeah, and particular types of UV radiation lah.
Okay.
Yeah. So in fact, a meta-analysis that was done reviewing over I think 40 over studies on whether UV rays can cause skin cancer, they found that if you had received 5 sunburns per decade of your lifetime, it actually increases, or more than 5 sunburns per decade in your lifetime, you can actually increase the risk of developing skin cancer by 3.2 times.
Huh? That's a lot.
Yeah, a decade.
Imagine I go to the beach once a year.
Yeah.
And I get sunburn once a year. That's like more already.
Exactly. So,
Oh crap. my God.
Yeah, so whenever people talk about the importance of sunblock and like, oh, yeah, all these things, and then as kids, I think we tend not to listen.
And then we want to become 10.
Yeah, and then we want to become 10. So yeah, there are a lot of things that we don't listen, and especially when there is sunburn, which means there's definite damage already.
Yeah.
That actually shows that your skin is actually suffering. So especially for people who are fairer skinned, who are more likely to become red, all these people who don't really have that pronounced melanin protective ability in their skin.
Yeah.
Yeah, all these people actually have a much higher risk of developing skin cancer from just sunburns. Yeah, so we must always take note. And even sunblock itself, I mean, they recommend SPF more than at least 15. 15,
right?
15.
15?
Yeah. So all the false marketing and whatever. But yeah, as long as it's above 15, it already has some form of protection.
Oh, okay.
But even then, sunblock isn't perfect.
Yeah.
So sunblock doesn't extend the amount of time that you can be in the sun.
Okay.
Yeah. So always put on sunblock if you're going onto the beach or like going anywhere.
Oh my
Just
goodness, I just
every
went.
day.
Yeah, it's best if you can put it every day. But speaking of melanin and how it protects, so melanin is this pigment that is produced by our skin and is what is causing our skin become darker in color, right?
Yeah.
So we have particular cells in our skin or epidermis, if it's just the chim word for skin.
One of the layers of the skin.
Yeah, so it's the bottommost layer of the skin. There are these cells called melanocytes.
Melanocyte? I don't know.
Melanocytes.
Sounds pretty cool.
Melanocytes. They produce melanin in packages, and then it's actually sent to keratinocytes, which is basically the cells that makes up our skin.
Okay.
And then these packets of melanin surround the nucleus of keratinocytes. And so what is a nucleus? It is basically what contains DNA in our cells. So melanin, when it surrounds this nucleus, it can actually absorb the damage from UV rays and prevent the DNA from getting damaged itself.
Oh, so when my DNA is damaged, then I get skin cancer.
Yeah, you might get skin cancer eventually.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's cool.
So actually, that's why mild, it's not really damage per se, but mild UV exposure can actually trigger this response, and it allows us to be able to be in the sun for longer.
To produce more melanin.
To produce more melanin,
Okay.
to be in the sun for longer. But again, it is not perfect protection. Always put on sunblock. Now I'm very scared of the sun.
Yes.
If anything. And yeah, always take note of your exposure to the sun.
Another question that is on everyone's mind and that affects all of us is, can we get brain cancer from sleeping next to our phone?
Yeah, the main thing is, so all these cellular devices, be it Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, the radio signals from our phones, all of these are all classified under a particular type of radiation called radio waves, or I think we already mentioned it before. It's also at the lower energy end.
It's
of the
lower than
spectrum.
microwaves.
Yeah.
Right?
So there have been many studies done on this. There have been many controversial, contradicting
Damn it, I was
results.
hopeful.
Yeah. So as of now, there isn't really much of a link between RF radiation and cancer that is entirely clear. So some studies say that they do increase the risk of cancer, whereas other studies say they don't. And so even now, people don't really know how to classify RF radiation, and most regulatory boards actually classify it as possibly carcinogenic. So
That sounds dangerous already.
yeah, but it actually is most of the substances that we have are possibly carcinogenic, so including coffee, tea. So it's actually, they don't really know. When they classify it, it's just in case it actually does. Yeah, so all these studies so far that we have are actually not long enough for us to tell whether or not there's a definite correlation between RF radiation and cancer. So for now, I'm still gonna sleep with airplane mode on. Please do not disturb me in the middle of the night.
I guess, fine. But I guess, again, we are weighing the risk and benefit of this, right?
Yeah.
Like, how much does your phones and all these devices benefit you compared to the potential, the small likelihood of getting cancer from it?
Yeah.
I guess depends on how long you want to live. I don't know.
Yeah,
how I want to die.
Yeah, as in, I think when we
Morbid.
say increase the risk of cancer, we must take note that the risk of developing cancer is generally not very high to start off with already. So when you increase that risk by, like, let's say for skin cancer, like 3-fold, the actual risk of developing is still relatively lower. But I mean, why probe that risk and try and increase it, you know? Yeah, so I think the very last thing that we talked about was nuclear reactors and how we talked about microwave food, whether or not that can cause the food to store radiation. So do nuclear meltdowns actually cause foods to store radiation?
Okay, so most of the research that I was reading was from the Fukushima nuclear reactor meltdown.
Yeah.
Basically, the compound that causes the radiation risk is called cesium. I don't know if I'm pronouncing CAES.
CAE.
Cesium.
Okay,
On
so
the
there's
periodic table of elements.
yes, element. Is that a word?
Element. Yes.
So the isotopic form, which is the more active form, higher energy form, the one that can cause cancer, is found in the waters like 30 to 600 km offshore of Fukushima. So that's a very far.
600?
Yeah.
30 to 600. That
KM.
range is too big.
Just cover all bases.
Yeah.
And they are detected in zooplankton and mesopelagic fish, which is the fish that live between the depths of 200 and 100 meters deep in the sea. So they are usually, I think, at the bottom, the twilight zone.
Okay.
And because the floor probably contains a lot more of these isotopes, and therefore these fish would have more of higher levels of these cesium. So the cesium isotopes are elevated 10 to 1,000 times over compared to normal times in these animals. And this actually sounds scary, but what they say is that the level of radiation risks are still below what is generally considered harmful to marine animals and human consumptions. So even though it's elevated so many folds, it's not supposedly dangerous for you. And so they did like a statistical model as well to assess the risk for like aquatic food items, and they find that the overall contamination of the foods are quite low. It supported their previous findings on how, you know, all these levels of radioactive cesium are still very low even for the fish. And although like some freshwater species still have relatively high risk because of their osmoregulation system, like how the fluids enter their body compared to saltwater fish, but generally it's still quite low. So my question was, what about Singapore, since we're living here? Yes, I tried to find this article on Straits Times, but it's on premium, so anyway, I found it on another place. Basically, it's quite a recent article in 23rd Feb.
This year?
Yeah, this year. They talk about how Singapore is regulating the imports from these countries that have nuclear reactor meltdowns. Basically, Singapore requires a certificate of production origin from the products from certain prefectures in Japan, and a certificate of radionuclide pre-testing on products from Fukushima. So basically, this test certifies that the food has been tested and no radioactive contaminants were detected above 100 becquerel. I don't know if I pronounce it. 100 becquerel per kg of for radioactive cesium. So yeah, this becquerel is a unit of radioactivity. And yeah, so I guess for Singapore, we are still considered quite safe. There is all these regulations in place, and probably other countries also. And we are like toning down on, you know, how strict we are with these imports.
Okay.
So actually, the bottom line is it's still quite okay. And I'm pretty sure like the countries would have done the regulatory tests for your foods.
Okay, so bottom line is that we should put on sunblock whenever we go out, even if we're just going out, not just when we go to the beach or if we're going to be in the sun for a long time. But everything else is not really clear. So just be careful. Err on the side of caution, I would say.
For sure. So as usual, give us a follow on Spotify and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
You can also follow us on our social medias on Instagram, Twitter, and even Facebook.
You can also ask us questions by sending us a DM on our social media or emailing us at thelabdoctors@gmail.com.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.